Hello, I'm Mark Baer. You're watching the YourTown television program. My first guest today, the former mayor of Salinas, Dennis Donohue.
Good morning.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation.
So, you were mayor, and let's just talk about that your former job a little bit.
Right,
Let's just frame
sure,
this.
Sure. Well, it was a great honor, and I often tell folks I was kind of an accidental mayor, and there are three stories of how I became mayor. One of them is actually true, or whatever kind of fits the situation. But ultimately, I just Salinas at the time, in terms of some of the challenges that I thought the city faced, I thought my background was well suited, and like I say, it was an honor to serve as the mayor of my hometown. I thought I could help, so I threw my hat in the ring, and I won.
And these years include?
Well, it was 2006 through 2012, and so what certainly made that an interesting time to serve in office was, fortunately now it's a bit of a distant memory, but besides some of the challenges our community had at the time. When I entered office, we had the highest per capita housing cost versus the lowest per capita income in the country. So we were getting caught up in a lot of the Silicon Valley housing market prices at that time, and then within a couple of years, the economy, the recession had hit, and really the economy came to a standstill. But fortunately, we were able to still make a lot of progress, because I think the council that I worked with, we had a good game plan, and we had some outside help in terms of whether it was the federal government and the state government in terms of some of the things we were working on in youth violence. We were very fortunate that the LSAL was selected by California endowment to receive a significant grant, and then we were very fortunate that Taylor Farms decided to locate their headquarters in downtown Salinas. So we had a lot of external things happening that were helpful, that allowed us to offset some of the things that were happening in the national economy.
So as you've stepped out of political office, and your next act is you took with you a passion for the arts and a passion for agriculture.
Right.
And let's go, I guess let's start with the National Steinbeck Center. You're
Right.
president of the board, and let's talk about that first.
Good. Well, good. Thanks for the opportunity to do that. When I thought about what I wanted to do after I left office from a civic standpoint, I had become really intrigued by the arts while I was in office. I think the arts are a terrific economic development opportunity. I certainly recognize it's critical as a quality of life, and Salinas is a relatively young city, so you're always looking for activities for young people, and kids, students have a myriad of interests, and so I couldn't help but be struck by really the keen interest in the arts. And a lot of times those organizations have really had to struggle. So when I first left office, I got involved in a number of boards. I realized I was a little oversubscribed, and have really kind of settled in and focused on the National Steinbeck Center.
Mm-hmm. You have people like Hijos del Sol and Jose Ortiz
there.
there.
Oh, I'm a huge fan of his. Yes.
These are artists that are nationally.
Oh yeah.
These are great artists, great people. So the
Yeah.
talent that you're working with there, and the importance of the work they're
Absolutely.
doing, and the message of social justice that the Steinbeck Center brings.
Right.
It's an important piece. And now with the interaction with Monterey Bay.
Right.
With the university.
Yeah, we're very fortunate. I think I don't think it's any secret the National Steinbeck Center has had to work its way through some financial challenges. And fortunately, when Cal State Monterey Bay came in and bought the building, they became our landlord, and you know, they're a terrific partner. I think both parties are just now really begin to be able to fully explore what that opportunity might look like, because Cal State Monterey Bay obviously has certain objectives in their mind in terms of taking two very visible positions in Salinas. Obviously, the CSUMB at City Center, and then they also bought the old Heald College. So they've taken a strong position in the city, and I think you know, as time has progressed a little bit, they're now really getting focused on the direction they'd like both of those facilities to take.
I know Enid Dexter is going to have a role
Right.
on their side. She brings
Right.
a lot to the
Yeah,
table.
no, she's terrific. I'm a huge fan.
Yeah,
and,
as am I.
yeah,
So
yeah.
you're dealing with a lot of real positive, forceful
Right.
people, and it's a big idea.
Yeah, no, it really is, and you know, one of the things that I think.
It's the 50th year. Let's get that.
Yeah, no. Thanks for bringing that up. So the Steinbeck Center celebrated its 20th anniversary as an organization, and then December 20th is the 50th anniversary of Steinbeck's passing, and you know, and we view that as an opportunity to pivot to the future and to begin talking about Steinbeck the next 50 years, because we want to send a strong signal to the community that we're here, we're forward thinking, and one of the opportunities that I think working or you know, being in the same neighborhood as CSUMB, because they've taken a very strong community cultural focus, and they can elaborate on that better than I can, but it allows us to get much more focused, you know, kind of on the business of Steinbeck's legacy, but also really kind of narrow our lane in terms of where we contribute to the community, writing and critical thinking. So we're looking forward to kind of sharpening up our vision. I think most nonprofits, we're in an era of everybody's kind of evaluating what their business model needs to look like.
Mm-hmm.
So we're passing through that process now, but we're excited about the future, and we've got a small but dedicated board working on that as we kind of rebuild for the future.
And looking at Steinbeck future, not Steinbeck past is historic and interesting,
Right.
but the messaging and the importance and the future is it's very vital right now.
Well, no, exactly, and you know, yeah, we don't think he should be a past tense author.
That's exactly right.
We think he, you know, his if you look at the nature of his work, the scope and breadth of it, you know, he's still got some important commentary for our times, and you know, it's exciting to think that Salinas is. You know, I like to tell people Salinas has two big calling cards to the world. You know, the Valley of the world, Salad Bowl of the world, and John Steinbeck. And you know, the whole ag tech thing was about updating that, and you know, I think something similar is going to happen with John Steinbeck. We'd like to think there's going to be a renaissance, and the center will contribute heavily to that.
You brand yourself as all things ag. So you're again, part of this next act is agriculture and technology and,
Right,
and the
right.
intersection, and you're very active in that.
Well,
place.
I am, and I'm fortunate that I've been able to continue. You know, when I first ran for mayor, part of you know, it was at a time where a lot of folks were looking to all levels of government to what can you do to contribute to economic development and economic opportunity. So I really kind of started out with a very simple premise that we needed, you know, we're the fresh nerve center of the planet, and so what happens when you rub the two sticks together of, you know, of the freshest valley in the world with the Silicon Valley, which is arguably the greatest economic engine the world's ever seen, and you know, because as a mayor at that point, your responsibility is to think about how you can contribute to creating opportunity for your young people, and then very, very frankly, while it has improved, though I think as a former mayor, all of us, recognize there are some issues that cities face going down the road. But at the time, we were a relatively poor city on a per capita basis from a general fund standpoint. So we really had a hard need to look at ways we could expand our tax base. And so it just seemed to me a good place to start is let's rub those two sticks together, the Salinas Valley and the Silicon Valley.
What's surprised you the most about that dynamism?
Well, that's an interesting question. I had actually, even though I'm a salesman married to a farmer's daughter, and I got into ag the old-fashioned, you either grow up into it or you marry into it, and so I married into it. But I actually started my business career in the Silicon Valley, and I worked for Atari and Microsoft for a couple of years. So I was always just kind of intrigued by the Silicon Valley technology, but we live in an era, and today in terms of current events, not everybody gets excited about the Silicon Valley. In terms of, yes, there's a lot of economic vitality, but look at all the things that come along with that. High housing prices, traffic, and that sort of thing. So I think what's kind of surprised me a little bit is that the Silicon Valley is not universally embraced, and then I think the other thing is I really got into it from a mayoral standpoint. There's kind of a perception that the venture capitalists are where all the money is, and there may be a lot of money there, but they're looking at the world from an investment standpoint in terms of individual companies and that sort of thing. So how you really effectively engage that valley, it's a little trickier than I realized when I started diving into all that as the mayor.
So let's talk about again at the end. We discussed the possibilities of you coming onto this show and talking about agricultural interviews, and I quoted Marianne Leffel saying we're the mini-tropolis, and how we're stronger with Salinas and the Monterey Peninsula together, thinking as one area.
Right.
And I said, we're a county that really matters in the country. And you said,
well, I think I could easily argue that this is the world's county.
And that's pretty a big thought, and I think a true thought.
Yeah, well, I do too. I mean, we're if you look at our core industries, we really are the fresh nerve center of the planet. With a $4.5 billion crop report. But one of the things I used to explain to people, sometimes mayors they'll kind of strut their feathers a little bit, and somebody will say you're the fourth largest crop report in California, and I'd say we ain't the fourth largest crop report of anything, because the simple fact is that Salinas Valley companies are operating throughout the state, multiple counties, and financing crops, and they're really the go-to market, and really driving a lot of trends in fresh. So we are global players, and in fact, as a result of all of this ag tech activity, the world is coming to Salinas. Now there are other countries that are leaders in ag tech, but the list is Salinas, the Netherlands, New Zealand, Israel, Australia. I mean, we're in the list of places where fresh innovation is happening. And so when you marry that with the fact this is a global destination for tourism and hospitality, and a growing and developing wine industry that's getting more and more notoriety, and then you throw in the world's language capital of the world,
and higher education, and postgraduate in language, and all of those pieces. And I think it's important for people to know that they live someplace special if they don't already know it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when we were growing up, that phrase from a consumer marketing standpoint, does it play in Peoria? Really, now you could say, hey, does it play in Monterey County? When you think of all the different languages and dialects in this county alone. You know, really the future looks a lot like Monterey County. And the other thing I found it stimulating, sometimes challenging, but you know, every cutting edge social issue in California, you know, plays out here.
So in the last couple of minutes that we have left, I just want to touch on people that you think right now are making a difference here. Let's just put that out there.
Sure. Well, you know, that's a great question, and you know, one of the things I was really struck by when you have the honor of representing a community and then really being very involved in the community, you really kind of see you know, the number of terrific people who, you know, they don't get a lot of headlines or notoriety, but they're doing great things. One of them you mentioned when we first started talking, Jose Ortiz.
Yeah.
You know, there's a terrific artist and mentor that you know, he might be known in his circles, but you know, I'm not sure everybody
knows what he's up to.
Yeah, and they should. You know, I always tell people the story of when I first encountered him, and then listened to him talk about the students and young people he was mentoring and spending time with after school. There was one particular 12-year-old he talked about, and he just made the comment. He said he said that little 12-year-old is an old soul. He just recognized something, and I thought, boy, someone who has that kind of care and concern for the students he's working with, that's a great player, and
and his guys revere him,
and they do,
and they've been with him, and he's been bringing these kids along, and they're all going to be the next gen.
Yeah,
you know, so it's very impressive.
Yeah, no, he's done a terrific job. You know, another thing I'm not sure it's fully. I mean, a lot of people came to the initial meeting, but you know, I would keep my eye on Salinas Valley Memorial. They've introduced a concept to the community called blue zones, where people, different spots in the world where people live longer because they have healthier lifestyles. And you know, is that something that a community could actually rally around and embrace and
bring best practices?
Yeah, you know, that's a big push. But you know, I like that. I respect the fact they're trying to do something like that. So there's always, you know, I'm a little rusty on some of my Steinbeck quotes. You know, I think one of them was, "There's always something to do in Salinas," and you know, so there are always organizations and individuals. I mean, Salinas has just a terrific history of volunteerism and community engagement. But those, you know, Jose's a good example, and you mentioned Enid. I think she's terrific. I think Salinas is very, very fortunate to have her involvement. You know, downtown.
We live in a great place. Well, I'm going to stop here. We're just scratching the surface.
Yeah.
But I'm Mark Baer. You're watching the YourTown television program. Dennis Donohue, ex-mayor of Salinas, and moving on.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Pleasure, sir.
Good.